Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. The transition from the human speaking to that which is the portal which opens is now instant. And there would be those who would criticize that transition, saying it cannot be that way. For the three-dimensional human being and the multidimensional energy of that which is spirit needs more adjustment time. And they would say that that is a profound energy shift. And they'd be right. Oh, they'd be right. And so they would say the man is not fully channeling. What if the door never really closes? What if instead of opening the door, he simply says it's time to a door that's already open? And this is the premise of the new energy that you live in. What is before you that you can't figure out? There is no solution in this room that is more difficult than the beautiful consciousness of the human who has that problem. In other words, it would never be given to you if you couldn't solve it. And you know who I'm speaking to. The Creator is inside. In 3D, you tend to throw the switch. And your spirituality has always been that way. You have certain days you report to worship. You wear different things. You sing different songs. You kneel, or you don't. And then you come home and it's all different. And you're used to that switch. God is in that box. God is in that house. And I'm in mine. And that particular paradigm is over. Not only are you in 100% communication if you choose to be, but the beautiful help that is the love of God is always there with you. Always. It's not something you have to sit even and call upon anymore. It is something instead that lurks, that is to say, it is always there. The residual of it is there always. It's instant help. At every moment. And you might say, well, that sounds very good, Kryon. Well, how do we do that? How can I have that? And so again, we start a teaching that is new and different. And it is the description of what happens in the human being that actually creates that which is you. And we have given this before, but not this information. It is something similar because there are similar processes in the body that sound the same. We have in the past given you a 3 spiritual layer of what is inside you, and now we wish to do what is inside you physically that you don't know about. Oh, you do, but you've never really figured it out, and how to touch it and how to work with it and what it is. The human being is exceptionally complex spiritually. The human being is exceptionally complex physically. But we would like to break down the complexity and give you the information. You don't have to figure it out. All you have to do is know about it. And so I'll begin by giving you something that I have before. Something beautiful. A report out of history. And I want you to listen. For this is going to help you to understand what is inside you. And the beauty of it. Perhaps this will even give you the proof of it. You may not relate to history. But I want you to. From the youngest to the oldest in the room, I'm looking at old souls. You wouldn't be here unless you were. The four of you didn't plan on coming, and you wouldn't have come on your own. And you know who you are. And you're an old soul too. You may not believe this. Even that which you see before you, which we call channeling, you may not believe that. It doesn't matter. It does not change your magnificence, dear ones. For I know who you are. And you may not believe in me, but I believe in you. Because I stood at the wind of birth when you decided to come into this planet, live a life that you're living. I know the old soul inside. I know the sacredness. I know the divinity. And I will tell you that the same number of angels are going to walk out with you that walk out with the most profound healer in the room. Doesn't matter what you believe. That's the love of God. Unconditional. With you forever. And there'll come a time, maybe, when the seeds we plant today will start to grow and you'll realize you're not alone and that there's more than you thought. You might even ask for help. And when you do, it'll be you helping you. For you'll simply open the door and bring out those things which are already yours. That is the beauty of the human being. Let me take you back in time. Again, for the 9th time, we will channel about Elijah. You have to hear this yet again in this context. It is reported that Elijah is the only human being who chose his ascension path, who did not die as death would take you as a human, but instead turned into that energy which was divine and left the planet by choice. And he did. So enabled was he, and wise in the things of spirit. He knew how to do it. And the story that is told and the story that is accurate is that he had that which was, you would call the understudy, Elisha. And the understudy loved him. And this man, Elijah, was told about Elijah's ascension. And Elijah said, I'd like you there, I would like you to record it, I'd like you to speak of it, write it down. I want you to tell what it looks like. And Elisha said, Master, I will, but give me something in return. Let me have your mantle. I want to tell you what that means. Both men were aware of something you're not aware of. He was asking for Elijah's spiritual wisdom to be passed to him. How can you pass something like that that's not biological, birth-related? It's not an inheritance, is it, as you think in 3D? Here are these two masters. And the one looks at the other and says, I want what you have before you leave. I want you to grant me your mantle. That is the mantle of God that sits upon you. That is the very wisdom that allows you to ascend. I want it. I want to continue your work. And Elijah looked at him and said, it is granted. It is yours. The story really is about Elijah's ascension. But the backstory is about two masters who understood how they could transfer a beautiful energy one to another through a sacred gift. And someday we'll tell you more about that. Is it possible they knew more than you do today? The answer is yes. Now let me tell you what Elisha wrote down. Elijah walked into the field, and when it was his time, he turned into light. Quite simply, he turned into light. All the multidimensional pieces that he was became apparent, and that which was corporeal vanished, vaporized. It could not stay as it was with the divinity of the Creator. Now there are some who misread this and they say there was a light that came from the clouds, a chariot, and came and got him. That's not what Elisha wrote. Read it again. For Elijah turned into light right there on the ground. The God in him shone like the sun. And I'll tell you a lot about what's in the human being. And he knew it. Oh, Elisha's eyes, they're only 3D eyes, couldn't pick up the multidimensional parts, the incredible size of it, the fact that the universe knew that one had left the planet. He only saw a ball of light. And then he saw something else. He saw Elijah leave the planet in a multi-dimensional arrangement that could only be metaphorized. There was no explanation for it. Have you ever had a dream so real to you about certain kinds of things, so real at the moment, and then you wake up instantly and you have to write them down or tell your sleeping partner what it was about? Wake up, I have something to tell you. You'll never believe this. Here's what happened. And you cannot tell them, because it does not compute in 3D. I know that's happened. And it was the same with Elisha's eyes. What he was seeing does not compute in 3D. And the metaphor that he saw were 3 energies that literally took Elijah for a ride into the heavens, off of the planet. The best that Elisha could come up with was a chariot, a vehicle, with 3 white horses. That's what it became, a metaphor. It's the only thing he could get out of those lights and those changing patterns and the beauty and the glory of God. And that's what was written. A vehicle to ride in. He named it. He gave it a Hebrew word. The word to ride, Merkabah. Merkabah. It sticks today. Indeed, it should, for that's what we wish to speak of. Even higher than you think in its vibration right now on this planet in you. So we leave those 2 in the field with only a footnote. Study Elisha and look at what he got. A master who went on to do wonderful things, perhaps even that would rival that of his master, Elijah. Beautiful, wise, great. Indeed, the master had passed his mantle to Elisha. What a story. True, beautiful, recorded for you to see. Now let us return here. I would like to tell you about your body. There are 9 energies that we teach about. And they are not unique and not separate. Some of them share the same name and energy, so one of the 9 is actually 3 of the 9. In addition, we have given you 3 of them already. We give you 3 more today. There are 3 sets of 3s. Don't ponder this. It's not necessary that you itemize it. First of all, they're in a circle. It is what you would call a multi-dimensional soup. We would itemize them again, as we have in the layers of DNA, only so that you can perform examination upon them and study what is there. They do not work separate. They're not apart from one another. One may be stronger or weaker in its potential in what you see it. But they are in a soup, all 9. Today we bring you only 3. And we show you that which is a triad. Now I want you to think for a moment about the 3s. For there is something that has always been present in this. a trinity. And you'll find it in almost every religion on the planet. There are three. And in that which you would call of the Master Christ, you have the Father, the Son, the Holy Ghost. There are the three. It is intuitive that there would be three. It is even present in Islam. That which is seen spiritually, there are three of. For the three is a numerological energy of the catalyst. The catalyst, that is something that is changeable and something that will change and perhaps change things around it and not affect itself. That's the three. It is one of the most powerful numbers that you can run across. Beautiful. Significant. And we speak of it yet again. There are three parts of the human biology. The three white horses. I'm going to give them to you now. And we will start with the one which is common to all sets of three. The higher self. The human body, that is to say your biology, carries three main parts. Number one, the higher self. In the last teaching we gave you three spiritual parts. One of them was the higher self. This will tell you that if you draw this in a circle, it becomes the center. It is the anchor. It is three of the nine, the higher self. Now you would think the higher self would be the human soul, and you'd be partially accurate. For the soul of a human being, that which you call the soul, is divine. 100%. Belongs to you, is individual and unique, in a sense. So I give you information that is not really explainable. But it is not that different than you expected. The higher self, that part of the Creator that you are, contains everything that you are. It is the God part of you. And it's why it's the core. It is why it is the center. It is the portal. It is the portal that is open at this moment that my partner can give you this information in his voice in a linear way. My partner is not floating someplace. He's right in the chair with you. He steps aside, opens the door, and listens like you do. That is the channeling. That is the way of it. He can stop this at any time. He can start it up at any time. If he needs a biological help, if he has to drink water, if he has to cough, he stops and starts again. This is a gift of translation. And he does it through the higher self. The higher self is literally the pipeline through the soul to the other side of the veil. And it is spiritual. And you knew that. Well, let me tell you something you may not know, or I thought of. You consider the soul as singular and individual, and it is not. Oh, it's unique, but it's always connected to the whole. How can you have something that is connected to the whole, that is a part of something else, and you be unique? And the answer is yes. I can't explain that to you in 3D. Let me give you another premise. When you pass over and come home and get your party, that which is you, that is the higher self, that soul, stripped of the body, stripped of all things except for the core, arrives intact. Beautiful it is. It is who I know as you. It does not have your human name. It is ancient. It has no beginning. It has no end. It is a piece of God. Now you can't take God apart, human being. And so when I say you're a piece of God, that's just for your own 3D mind. That's all it is. Words that you can understand. But you can't take God apart. And so what am I telling you? I'm telling you that the whole of the universal God of creation lives in your higher self. All of it. Your soul is one with everything, in an entangled state with the furthest planet and star that you cannot see with a telescope. And you're there too. Hard for you to imagine something so grand and so great. It's why Elijah turned into that which was light itself. Hard to describe who you are. But here's what you don't expect. In your three dimensions, the soul leaves the planet, goes back to wherever it is you think it goes to. Heaven, if you wish. Which is not a place at all. It's a dimension, or a group of them, hard to describe to a 3D creature. And there it resides, you may think, in a three-dimensional way, until it returns. And then it comes back and it's another human being, it's born to a new set of parents, it gets another name, and you walk through life yet again, old soul. And that's pretty standard. And it's awfully 3D of you. What if I told you this? Your unique soul, a piece and a part of God that has a name we say in light, is not apart from God. And therefore, it is always intermingled with every other soul that has ever been on the earth. And when you return to that pool of souls, and you seem to reunite, when you come back to the earth, you have choices to become part of those who were. Don't misunderstand this. You're still you. You still have a soul which is coming back, which is unique, and the soul that it used to be. But if you could pattern it with an interdimensional pattern, you'd see a difference. Because when you're on the other side of the veil, depending upon what you have picked up here, you can pick up certain things there from the pool of souls and bring it with you. And in you come again. There are those walking on earth who are convinced they're a piece of the Master Muhammad. Reincarnate. There are those who are convinced they are a piece of Mother Mary. There are those who are convinced that Magdalene is in them. There are those who are convinced that the Christ himself is part of their makeup, and that's who they were. And there are many of them who think that. Oh, how singular of you. Let me tell you what's going on. All of those soul energies that you look up at and say they were a piece of God, I want part of that, are attainable and available when you leave here. You pick up a part of them and you bring it back, and that's what you feel and that's what you know. And in 3D and in a singular way, you assign the whole thing to you, not understanding that they're everywhere in an entangled state with everything else. I didn't expect you to understand it. I just want you to know it. It's beautiful. It's not singular. You're not making it up. Indeed, you are part of the master energies. Even Elijah. That's the higher self. That's one of the three I want to tell you about. We're talking about the human biological attributes. One of them, profoundly spiritual, the higher self. Now let us get it into 2 and 3. When you combine them, you have the human being. You may not see all three parts. In fact, you're not going to see. You're going to see part 2, which is human consciousness. Now, part 2, human consciousness, is very grounded. It is Gaia-like. It is of the 3 dimensions. It is of the earth. It is surrounded by the processes that make the earth, and Gaia, including the crystalline grid. It is a 2. Human consciousness is what you know every day. I don't really have to explain it to you. It's that which you carry around that you brought in today, that's listening to this, it is allied to your cellular structure and your body 100%. We call it consciousness, but it's more than that. It's corporeal awareness. It is you with your body, you in your body. It's you walking in and out of the room. It's you eating. All by choice. It's human consciousness. Human consciousness can change chemistry. It is constantly done. When you go into joy and you laugh, all of the chemistry is changed. When you breathe, by choice or not, all of the chemistry is changed. When you go into fear, the chemistry is changed. When you fall in love, do I have to tell you that? The chemistry is changed. Don't you love the last one? When you fall in love, you don't care if you ever eat again, do you? How's that for a suspension of survival? You don't care. You go into this mode of temporary insanity and you sigh a lot. And you just want to be with the other one, don't you? I want to tell you, I've just described the way God feels about you. Did you know that? So in love with those that are missing. Some of you connect and some of you don't. Most of the earth does not. We've got 7 billion pieces of God that don't even write home. So in love with you. Human consciousness is the part that you know in 3D. And you may assign to human consciousness all that is. Ask an intellectual. They will tell you there's nothing I cannot think about and everything I can discuss. A self-contained box of delusion. Human consciousness is limited. And here's how you know it is. There's something else going on in your body. Isn't it interesting that you're not in touch with it? Human consciousness is supposed to be all that is. You can be intelligent, you can think, you can laugh, sing, create things, tell jokes, cry, weep. Is there anything left out? You have no idea what's going on in your body. And you might say, why did God create a body in this way? I've said it before. Where you can have a disease in your body growing right now and not know it and have to go to a doctor that say you've had it for a year. And your body simply never told you. Well, there is a process. There is another intelligence just as big as human consciousness. And I'm going to tell you what it is and how it works. I'm going to give it a name. That's not the name you're supposed to use. That's just the name for the teaching today. I'll tell you why in a minute. Have you ever heard of muscle testing? It has another name, kinesiology. Interesting names you've given to these things. Why do you name processes with so many letters? Why can't you call it how? Kinesiology is the process where the body lets you know things you can't know consciously. Muscle testing will give you answers yes and no about substances that will and will not be effective in your body and allergicness. Foods, substances. What are you doing? You are getting in touch with an intelligent part of your body that has no name, that you cannot identify, but that you trust in, that knows what you don't know. Now here's something you've never tried. How would you like to ask muscle testing if you had anything wrong you don't know about? Yes or no? It'll tell you. Nobody does that, do they? Maybe you don't want to hear it. Maybe you'd rather hear it from a man in a white suit. Maybe. But there is something going on inside your body. It knows. It's called innate. If you want to define innate, it would be things which have an understanding with no logic. In your body, there is a system that is the third one. Interesting. Number 3, the catalyst. Innate. I'm going to tell you what it is. And it's described in that book, which I had my partner write along with me, which has to do with the 12 layers of DNA, because it has to do with the intelligence of DNA. Innate is the largest intelligence in your body. It is connected to everything, including human consciousness, and you are not. Innate is the DNA field. Innate is the Merkaba. Now you would say, aha, you said the only spiritual part was the higher self, and yet the Merkaba is very spiritual. Who told you that? The Merkaba is human field of innateness. That is to say, it is all-knowing of all things, but the higher self is the portal. Oh, innate has other things to do. There's a field around innate. Your DNA creates a field. And it's not just a static field. How do we describe something undescribable to you? DNA is absolutely packed with information. It is a terminal of information. That is what 90% of DNA, information. And in that field that surrounds DNA, out to 26 feet from the human being, 8 meters, is packed with information. And you might say, what is the information? Let me write it down. And I'll tell you, it's the information that needs to be there at the right time, depending upon what that field intercepts. Higher self, consciousness, innate. Innate knows everything that's going on chemically in your body. Now I'm going to tell you what else innate controls. The information in your stem cells. That is innate's job. I want to ask you some questions. Are you aware that every piece of DNA is identical? Hundreds of billions, trillions pieces of DNA, these molecules in you, absolutely unique with your print, with your Akashic record, with your angelic name, all identical. From the tip of your head to your toe, identical. So how is it that they can make cells that are so different? The skin, the organs, all of these things. Because these identical pieces of DNA are information that talk to a very tiny percent that make the genes of the human body. The engine of the race car that makes your body. 90% is the blueprint. 3.5% the engine. Innate is smart. Innate is intelligent. And you might say, I don't understand any of this. Why? If that's the truth, why don't I know it? And here is the answer, because innate, like your DNA, is in a quantum state. It is multidimensional, it's not in 3D, and you can't talk to it easily. Wouldn't it be nice if you could put human consciousness together with innate? Wouldn't that be something? And now I'll tell you something. The Master called Jesus Christ had a full and complete communion set between human consciousness and innate. Total and complete meld. Because he knew how. And the portal was open to his higher self. The three came together to be one. And what did you see him do? First of all, he knew all about his body. What did you see him do? He had power over matter. Interesting. What if the information in DNA was so complete that you could have that? He did. Everything was cooking at 100%. Now, we have brought this to you before, and we've given you percentages, and we've given you things to think about. But now we're telling you there is an intelligence in your DNA. How does it work? In a quantum way that you say is chaotic. Let me give you some examples. Oh, before that, let me tell you one of its main attributes. Here you sit in the hospital. Oh, dear human beings, this is so powerful. And the times it has happened on this planet, so few. So beautiful. I want to show you what innate does. Innate is in control of your biology. Absolute control. It can do anything. It can keep you alive for 900 years. If you let it. You think those biblical times were has to be flawed. They couldn't have lived that long. Oh, yes, they did. And innate made sure of it. Total control of the human body. You're sitting in the hospital. You learn of the disease. You're going through the processes, and it starts to scare you to death. And somehow, through some magic that you don't understand and you don't know and we can't explain to you, you connect the innate just for a moment, and you have something called spontaneous remission. And the disease disappears, and the immune system comes up to the challenge and wipes it out of the body, and science looks at you and goes, how did you do that? Maybe if you get scared enough. That's not the answer. But that's innate. Just took care of it all. That's how powerful it is. There is a field around you of DNA. Let me tell you about this field. Intelligent it is. We have told you that you can activate part of your DNA. And the human being then wants to itemize it, goes to the book where there's 12 energies, and decides which one they like best to activate. You know how silly that is? You're looking up in the sky, you see a rainbow, and you say, I like purple. All the other colors go away. Purple, come on down. You can't touch it. Did you know the rainbow was in a circle? Most don't. You think it disappears into the ground, don't you? No, it doesn't. It's in a circle. So is DNA. Really? Did you know that it connects itself? You think it's a strand, it's a circle, always was. Science knows that now. You still call it a strand. I don't know why. Innate will tell you what you need. It is smarter than you are. For innate is connected to the Akashic record. It has to be. It's a field of DNA. So you may then start a communication with that part of your body that knows more than you do, and you may say, I wish to activate that part of DNA which I need the most. Now some of you in here, you need the one that's going to heal your fear. Put you in a place where you're more peaceful. Some of you, and you know who you are, and you're right here, need the healing one. You need to be healed. You need that body to start doing something it hasn't done before, and innate can do it. And then there are those where there's nothing wrong with you at all, and you just want something better than you got. And that's what I want to talk about. Because innate can do that too. What if you'd like to stop aging? Innate is very good at that. All you have to do is connect with it. I want to give you a process I've told you about before. Are you aware that the human body reproduces itself and rejuvenates? It's built to never die. And it does. And it does because that which is rejuvenatable is not perfect. And yet it can be, and it should be, you might think, if only it worked a little better. There is a reason why you age. And the reason is the imprint that you have based upon the energy of the planet. It is why those in the past may have lived 600 and 700 years and you only get 80. Something's happened with the energy of this planet that has actually affected the blueprint of the stem cells. I just said a mouthful. Listen. Every time a cell reproduces in your body to make another one, there is a query. That is to say, there's an informational question. It's about to reproduce, pull apart, cell division. It's about ready to make another one of itself. But right before it does, right before the nucleus does that, right before, there's a question. Innate is asked, do I do it to the same blueprint or a different one? And the question is answered always the same. Is there new information? No. Make the same one. Can you imagine for a moment, in that split second of time, in that quantumness that is there when the cell is splitting, if the answer was, wait a minute, there's some new information. I want your telomeres to lengthen. Change the blueprint, stem cell, do it. And you produce something which is pristine. And the human being starts to not age and lives a very long time. Perhaps it improves the immune system. I am giving you information that I promise you medical science is going to give you within 2 decades. And I'm giving it to you now. There is a system of intelligence in your body that knows more than you do and that is ready to be addressed with human consciousness, and a meld take place. You and innate and the higher self. Creating a body which does not age near as much, where you don't have to worry about the disease, where you can have peace and you have no drama. You become a different human being. And if you're putting this together, that's what the masters of the planet told you you could have. This is no different than what the ancients knew and talked about and gave you. And you're in a new energy where we're starting to tell you these things are upon you in this energy. What are you going to do with them? Well, Kryon, you still haven't told us how. My partner did earlier, if you listened. There is a bridge. There is a bridge, and it's called intuition. Intuition has a foot in both human consciousness and the innate. And sometimes, if you're lucky, even the higher self. For spiritual intuition is just a graduate of human intuition within your own body. Intuition is the bridge with innate. So start using that intuitive power that every single human has. What is your first impression when you ask a question? Don't discount it. Start asking your body a lot about things. Don't discount it when it doesn't make sense. You go into meditative state. Maybe we should change the word. Maybe it shouldn't be meditation. That would indicate that you go into another realm where you're relaxed, where you're going to breathe hard, where you're going to let things happen. What if instead you go into a concentrated state of intuitive inquiry? Dear Spirit, dear body, dear innate, I choose to meld with you in whatever form you decide. Dear innate, thank you for being in me and with me and being me and protecting me. Thank you for the field that surrounds me, that keeps me safe. Thank you that I am able to hone the intuition and know. Innate can tell you if somebody's lying to you. Innate is what allows you to know this channeling is real. Innate knows. More than human consciousness, innate is in a quantum state. It is the quantum part of the human being. That's what the other dimensions create in you. So superstring theory, they say there are 11. There's more than 27. They'll find that out. What's in the others? Innate. And you own it. Information that can be written and rewritten within your DNA that affects the stem cells, that talks directly to the biology and affects you. And that's not all. For here it comes full circle. We have said to you, why don't you consider mining the Akash? That is to say, picking up those things in past lives that you've lived through and you've earned, and here they are, lurking in you, waiting to be used. But because you're 3D, you think they're in the past and they're just something you look at. Never understanding that in a quantum state there is no time. Use them. And you might say, how? And the answer is innate. That part of you, part 3 of the 3 that we're discussing, is ready to look into that Akash and pick the one that you need right now, because innate knows. Don't pretend you know. Human consciousness is limited to 3D. You know what you want, but innate knows what it'll give you to accomplish that which you need. Isn't that beautiful? God in you. A system that's bigger than you thought. Many of these things you're going to see soon. Don't be shocked and surprised if medical science, including that which is what you call quantum biology, starts to prove what I am telling you today. It won't be that long. Another intelligence inside takes care of things too. Human being has its spinal cord severed completely, totally, in a wheelchair. It's funny how that heart keeps beating, and then where are the signals coming from? Old medical science will tell you, well, it's this or that. Well, it isn't the brain. They want to tell you, well, the brain is another way of sending something. It comes through here, and then there's muscles here, and then... No, it isn't. How come those with a severed spinal cord can still have reproductive activity? Where's that coming from? That's supposed to be total brain. And the answer, my dear friends, is innate. Because it's connected and always was. Always has been. You're starting to get a picture. And it's beautiful. And that's the message. And what are you going to do with it? Why don't you start a process of talking to yourself, your own cellular structure on a regular basis, and spirit at the same time, almost as though they were one. Speak to innate. I know you're there. The beauty is this is not apart from human consciousness. It is allied with it. It is the multidimensional part of what you already have. Innate is you, taking care of you in the best way it can, even if you can't talk to it. Find a way. Intuitive. You get to a place, dear one, where the talking to innate is going to be second nature. It's all done through that part of you which is intuitive, and you'll do it every moment of the day. And that is when you get peace. And that is when you start to fall in love with yourself. Beautiful. Possible. Doable. And as you walk the planet, the plants will know. The animals will know. See, they're all hooked into it. Beautiful it is. That's our message. That's what we want to tell you. Another exposition of the God in you. I am Kryon, in love with humanity. Go from this place changed. And so it is.
Greetings, dear ones. I am Kryon of Magnetic Service.
And so the man sits in the chair, as he has done for over 20 years. And the humans in the audience have an opportunity, with free choice, to believe or not believe. And there are those who won't. They'll say it sounds just like the man. His corporeal body remains identical to the 3D seer. Some will say it's a trick, it's a fake, and walk away unchanged and convinced that these things are not for them a circus show. And right next to them will be somebody who not only sees the change in the corporeal body, but is in the process of healing themselves accordingly through an entangled state with spirit, and will walk out of the room with years in their life extended. And that is the difference. Channeling is a portal. Call it a portable portal. A portal that moves around with the higher self of the individual who chooses to open it. We have discussed the old souls on this planet. Those who are beginning to strike the match and hold it high. Those who are changing themselves. And they are also many portals, portable, walking around. And wherever they go, there are differences. And when they assemble, there are differences. And when then they split up to go to their places, there are massive changes around them. Like lighthouses on the rock, they make differences in their lives, in their families, in their workplaces. And all of that is a mystery to those who are not ready. There are so many interesting things that we could tell you about old souls, but we will say right now to this group in this room that the majority of you who sit here are old souls. Now that is defined as those human beings who have been on the planet lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, at least 1,000 years, some of you 10,000 and more. And we have made announcements about some of the attributes that old souls have. And I'll say it again so that you would hear it in this short message. Announcement number 1. I know who you are and I know what you've been through, and I don't mean this lifetime, although I know that as well. Spirit sits in your lap when you sit down. Spirit stands next to you when you stand up. Spirit runs beside you when you quicken. Spirit is in the vehicle when you travel. You're never alone. There is a group that you would call guide sets, whatever you want to name them, and you won't be right. Or multidimensional beings, some of them part of you, that always are there. And the energy of the Gaia grid on this planet is changing so greatly that the veil starts to lift, and those entities around you are able to now get to you easier, should you choose to look. And if you begin the process of asking, is there more? Can I really do this? Does this work, dear ones? This is the energy you have waited for it begins now. And your entire life you have swam upstream, light worker, and we know it. You've been beat up, and we know it. You've been cast out, and we know it. Some of your family members, I know who's here. And the disappointment on both sides. that your own family would turn their back on you, and we know who's here. Sometimes the love of the mother is absolute, but it's dichotomous with the love of her God. I know who's here. And if you go back a few lifetimes and a few hundred years, there are those of you who awakened with the knowledge you have today, the what if God was inside knowledge, and you were seen as a cult, cast out of the village, some of you burned at the stake. I know this. And you come into this lifetime expecting more of that, don't you? Well, some of you got a little of it. And what is the result of that? I will tell you. Light workers are timid. They don't have a lot of self-worth either. Because human beings tend to walk around them. Because they are unusual. And what if I told you, dear one, that is going to change? Oh, they're not going to accept the New Age. It doesn't have the structure they like. There's no buildings, there's no rule set, there is no doctrine for them, there's no prophet. No, what they're going to do is accept you. When the masters walked the earth, what attributes did they have? Did they have a doctrine? No, they didn't. They only had themselves. And they taught about the love of God. There are stories that even the animals followed them around. Could they have had a field that was compassionate, so much so that when humans stepped into it, they felt better? They felt safe? And the answer is yes. And that is what's happening to you. That someone would step into your home or into your field or next to you at work. Even your children and their children will know. You're a better person. Something's changed. You're more comfortable. You're easy. You're safe. There's no judgment. You listen to them. There's only love. There's only compassion. There's no instructions. All you do is sit and be. And with other humans get in trouble and they have drama, they may be sitting in a chair next to you where you work and experience the same issues that you do, only you don't react and they do. And eventually they're going to turn to you and say, how do you do it? How do you stay even? How do you center in your core? How do you stay compassionate and loving when there's just idiots all around us? You see, I know who's here. And it's a good question, is it not? Be ready to answer it. And you don't have to give them a crying book. Tell them about you. Here's what I've discovered. I think that God is inside us. And I have claimed that. And it's made a big difference. And now I'm going to live longer. I'm relaxing. I don't have anxiety. My blood pressure is down. Because I know I'm loved. And all these things around me don't touch me anymore. Are you beginning to feel what's in this room, dear ones? Could this be real? Have you come in doubt? What if this was real? Channeling has always been on the planet. There are no words of God on the planet. Scriptures were not written by God. They were written by humans. Think about it. Some of them sitting in a chair, like this one, with a pen in their hand instead of a microphone. And the words that they would scribe on parchment became the Holy Scriptures. That's channeling. Anointed as they were with the spirit of a mini portal to the higher self, giving informations of love from source. It was seen by human beings as divine, as beautiful, as real, and published accordingly. This is not new. There's even a chair in the Vatican a relic, where something happens called ex cathedra. And the Pope sits there and everything he says is infallible. Even the Pope knows there must be a connection to Source. For there is new information. Even the Pope knows. Religions who say you cannot talk to God, even they know that at least one of them must. Known by humanity, it is in so many different forms. Channeling. Not only appropriate, divine, blessed. And you're going to see more of it. And it's not going to be like this. One to many. You're going to start seeing it one to one. When the higher self of you starts to open and you start getting the thoughts that you say are intuitive, you're making them up, and you start to understand this is the communication you've asked for. Don't throw away that which is intuitive. Put it instead in a sacred place and look at it. Don't put a clock on it. Don't give instructions and then manifest immediately. Get instructions and put them and wait for the synchronicity that manifests them by itself. All of these things we have taught in the past. Meanwhile, the doubter sits. Could it be real? So I have an invitation for those who are here perhaps for the first time and are wondering if it's the man or if it's Kryon. You're not going to know as long as the shield is there. If the shield of doubt is there, if the layers of cynicism are there, you'll always be in 3D and it will always be a fake. And so I'm going to ask you to remove the shield for the day. And before you get up from the chair tonight, you can put it all back. But only for a few hours, perhaps you would be open to things that you not normally are open to. For there's no dark energy here which will be transmitted to you. The love of God does not work in that fashion. You're open to sense energies for the first time. And you ask the question, dear God, show me. For if this is real, I need to know it. And then with your free choice, you may move on your way. Perhaps we have planted a seed that will grow, a seed that is hope, beyond what you thought might be possible with a human being. I tell you, humanity is starting to capture it all by themselves. To feel the Creator inside, to adjust, to become softer. You're going to see battles that are odd. The dark energy thrashing against itself. You're going to see dark energy organizations begin to try to apply themselves, to start up, only to have the public say, we're not interested. You're going to see terrorist groups start to try to incorporate yet again and recruit, and you're going to find their population saying, I'm not interested. And it'll be shocking. For the very paradigm that created them in the first place will change. And they're going to start to see that which is the true creative energy. The compassionate mother and the love of God, which abhors war. We would not say these things if they were not so. Take these things in. Use your spiritual logic and make up your minds. I'll be back. And so it is.
Quite a day, huh? The energy in the room is so very different than 12 o'clock. So, come on home to your body now. Take a few deep breaths with me. Inhale. Exhale. And again. And this time, inhale, I, and exhale, am. And you could just do that silently a few times. Inhale, I am. And just let your body gather itself into your skin. Let your eyes soften, your shoulders, your physical connect to your spiritual. And allow your awareness, like a lighthouse beacon, to just touch other lights around you in passing and say hello. And feel the vibration of the lights that each of you are, each individual, yet each is light. Your signature, your soul essence. And as you open to receive the love and the guidance of the Kryon energy, let it be from that place of essence and light.
Greetings, dear ones. I am Kryon of Magnetic Service. It is a safe place. A place where there are no energies that would be inappropriate that would come before you. Every single human in the room is known. And there is an attitude of spirit that presents itself to the individual. An attitude of thanks. An attitude of love. My partner sits on a stage so that in 3 dimensions you may see him. Spirit is not on a stage. Spirit is with you. And so the words that I have this day are being spoken within you, simultaneous with those pieces and the parts of you which are quantum. And it's personal, all of it. The information this evening will be that which is informative, and tomorrow, energetic. And so this is about the way things work. This is about energies and information and physics, and all for you. But before we begin, we say this: have you figured out yet why we're even here? Over 20 years ago, my partner sat in a chair and asked this question: what for? Why me? Why now? And we put before him the same thing I will put before you. Old souls are on this planet on purpose as a family. There is no accident that you are here. You sit in the chair today, some of you only recently realizing you were coming to the meeting. I know who's here. Perhaps to feel the energy of this day and this evening, and perhaps even tomorrow. And perhaps for the first time you will feel as part of this collective. Less individual and more part of the plan of of why you agreed to be here. Even your parents agreed with you before they came in to allow for you to be born. Your agreement with them was not to be appreciated, liked, even loved. It was to be born. And on the other side of the veil, they knew it and you knew it, and you're here because of it. They knew that it was not their time, but it would be yours. They saw the potentials just as Spirit did of what might take place in 2012, and you're here as proof. The plan is bigger than you think. I would like to talk about grids. I'm going to give you a channel, not an endurance channel, one that is about the 3 grids. It's not a summary, for there's always new information, but it's the first time we put these things together in this way for an entire channeling session. I want to explain them to you. I want you to think about them. I want you to start putting together these things and understanding. Everything around you exists for you. You don't walk around surviving as a victim in a world that is filled with other victims, at the beck and the call of nature and the forces of politics. That's not who you are. You're the chosen ones. The ones we knew who would come here, old soul, and start planting the seeds of light and those things called nature and politics. Oh, you live with them, but you're not really part of them. Well, they're in 3D and they are part of the culture that you live in and perhaps the world that you think you are in. But all of them are 3D. And the grids are not. Let me introduce you to real reality. The bigger picture, the things that are invisible, the things you cannot see but are there energetically. We spoke of 3 grids on the planet. There are more, but the 3 major ones that we teach about, the magnetic grid, this was the first that you heard of. I am Kryon, the magnetic master. You'll learn today why. The second one we talked about was the crystalline grid. We explained what it did, why it was there. We're going to do more today. And the third grid is Gaia, the grid of life. And so I'm going to give them to you and explain them in ways you perhaps have not heard before. And we're going to start the last first. The grid which is Gaia, one of the 3. We use the 3 constantly, for this is a catalytic number. That is to say, it has energy beyond itself. When the catalyst, whether it is a number or a chemical, is combined with other numbers or chemicals, they become greater than the source. We have spoken of the third language. That means a language which is higher and above the one you're hearing in 3D. You'll see the 3s everywhere. Gaia, the crystalline, and the magnetics are 3 in 1. There is not one which is higher or lower than the other, or takes precedent from the other. They exist in a soup, the 3 in 1. But I take them apart for your examination, but I tell you they're interactive. You cannot separate them. One involves in the other, is entangled with the other. The Gaia grid is the grid of life. It is the Akash. Gaia holds the Akash inside her. Life holds the Akash inside it. Therefore, any life on Gaia has its own Akash record. Yours is in your DNA. It is also in a cave of creation, which is in Gaia. The grid of Gaia is all about life on the planet of all kinds. You might even say that Gaia is that which sees and is responsible for regulating that which is coming and going to the planet. You pass through the Gaia grid, coming and going. Gaia is the closest grid you have to you. It is the first thing that the indigenous see, worship, know about. The indigenous are overwhelmed with the study and the worship of their ancestors, with life. That's Gaia. They know about that which is directional, the east, the west, the south, the north. They have ceremonies, lines of influence. That's Gaia. They gave energy to the growth of the crops, life. That's Gaia. And so Gaia becomes the one that you see first. You may even call it Mother Nature. But upon Gaia, there are some other things that you should know. Interwoven in what we call the crystalline and the magnetics, there are portals. Energies which sit upon, seemingly, Gaia, for they're on the land. And you might say that they are a Gaia attribute. A portal here, a portal there. And in a moment I'll show you why they're not. They belong to another grid. Now let me tell you about the consciousness of Gaia. The actual consciousness of Gaia, alive, of the earth, is all about humanity. 4 billion years ago, if you ask Gaia, what is going on? Gaia would say, we're preparing for humans. 1 billion years ago, as the earth cools, and you would ask Gaia, what is going on? She would say, we are preparing for humans. 50 million years ago, if you ask Gaia, what is going on? She would say, it's imminent. They will be arriving shortly. A few thousand years ago, she would say, and now they're here. Again, I want to present a puzzle to you. It was Gaia who regulated the timing of humanity, responsible for when you showed up. I didn't say evolution, did I? How long ago was it that you had large mammals on the earth, and how many humans were around building cities at that time? Doesn't it seem odd to you that it took 4 billion years for you to arrive? Could it be that there was a grander plan and that Gaia knew something, being connected as she is to spirit? And the answer is yes. Could it be that humanity is the new kid on the block in the universe? And the answer is yes. With the age of the universe and the age of your galaxy, did it ever occur to you that there might be civilizations as grand as yours, as intelligent as yours, that are millions of years old? There should be, and there is. You were delayed on purpose. Did you know that there were at least 4 starts of life on the planet? Gaia put them all to rest. The final one, it got photosynthesis. The other ones didn't. Talk to a biologist about this. All of these things should add up to the solving of a puzzle that would say, why now? Why did it take so long? When the earth could have supported humanity millions of years ago. Why now? There were two reasons. The first was to let your solar system settle down. That is to say, all of the rocks that are flying around would finally find their orbits and stop plowing into you. Because that wouldn't serve humanity at all, any more than it served the dinosaurs. Do you see what I'm saying? The evolution of mankind was presented exactly when it should have been, and aligned exactly when the Pleiadians would visit. Ready you were, not too advanced, not too shallow, just right. And that was the second reason. For the planet has been seeded, and this day you look and you know why. The planet is in shifts. It's going to change, dear ones. 2 generations from now, you're going to look back and something will occur to you. There hasn't been a world war. In fact, there hasn't been a big war of any kind. And you'll wonder what happened, and you'll be glad for it, but you won't have figured it out. Consciousness shift is at hand. We told you 20 years ago it would be. It's here. You're just beginning to see it. This earth is starting to repair itself. Slow it will be. Generations must come and go. Those who hate must leave. And they will. Through natural causes. Eventually replaced by those who will not hate. And sometimes that's the only solution. For there will be humans in groups who are very stubborn about this and will claim the old energy right to the end. Gaia. This is what Gaia has done for you. Orchestrated the timing of humanity. Put life on the planet for you to eat. Going through the cycle right now so that it will be refreshed so you can continue that. This is the one you see every day. Can you see it as alive? In your sleep, could you say, thank you, Gaia, for being with me, for loving me? And you'd be accurate and true. There is a consciousness of this planet. The ancestors knew it. You cannot ignore it. And it exists for you. The crystalline grid is the most difficult to explain. It is a metaphoric grid. You cannot see it. Now, you cannot see the Gaia grid either, but you can see Gaia. You can honor the plants, the trees, the animals, the oceans, the seas that are inland. You can marvel at the beauty. The crystalline sits there invisible doing its job, and it's profound. You can feel it, but you can't see it. We have said crystalline grid. This is a metaphor. What is it that you know about substances crystalline? The only rock, the part of the earth, which is Gaia, on the planet, that can hold a vibration is crystal. So we have called this the crystalline grid so that you would have an inkling of what it does. It holds vibration. It does more than that. It remembers. Here's a system that I have talked about before, but perhaps not in this complexity. Everything you do, old soul, is recorded on the crystalline grid. It remembers your life. Every footstep is recorded. And it's a non-linear process. We spoke of this just recently in another continent. That is to say that the crystalline grid does not remember things equally. There are certain things it remembers with, shall we say, greater strength than not. There are battlefields close by. And you can go stand in them, and those of you who feel things will say, this was a place of death. much happened here. Let me ask you, who are you talking to? It's the crystalline. Up to this point in your human existence, the crystalline grid has remembered that which is war, that which was healing, and that which was compassion in fairly equal ways. And you can go to places on the planet and feel the mother energy. That's the crystalline. Something happened there. You can go to places on the planet that are battlefields and feel that. On this crystalline area where you are now, there wasn't really much that happened. Only one civilization. Not much. It's fresher. If you go to Europe, you can stand where there are as many as 30 to 40 civilizations, battles, death in the millions. It's hard to channel there, dear ones. Ask my partner. Because the energy is not commensurate with a portal that opens as fully as it needs to for channeling. This is the crystalline at its best. What humans did, it remembers. Now I would like to tell you some things about the crystalline grid that we have not talked about much. Number one, if it's where human did things, that means most of the crystalline remembrance is on the land. Some things took place that were later covered by water, and these are felt still while on the water. But over 80% of all crystalline remembrances are on land. So you're not discovering a lot of portals on the water. Now you may have things you wonder about, such as the Bermuda Triangle, which is water. It has nothing to do with the crystalline grid. We haven't gotten there yet. That's magnetics. No, we are talking about what you feel when you stand in certain places, dear one, where the old soul resounds with the land. That's the crystalline that they're resounding with. We have told you that the crystalline grid is responsible for what you say are ghosts. And as proof of this, we tell you that you can interview someone who is passed over, because that which is their essence is still on the crystalline grid. If you have a seance and call on Aunt Martha, she'll be there. But only the Aunt Martha's tape plays. That is to say, that which was Aunt Martha on the earth stays, not where she is now. Let me give you an example. Aunt Martha, how are you? Fine. How are you? Fine. Aunt Martha, where's the treasure buried? 3 feet from the left of the oak tree. And she'll be right. Aunt Martha, what's it like on the other side of the veil? Fine, thank you. What's your day like over there? We love each other. Fine, thank you. You won't get any details because she's not there. Aunt Martha is only echoing what she was being taught by her church. You see what I'm saying? What is it the ghosts do? Over and over, they play a tape. Something happened in a house, they come down a stairway. It happens every night. You go back and they come down a stairway. And you go back and they come down a stairway. The crystalline grid is the ultimate tape player. It'll play it and play it and play it. And where there were profundities, it'll play it stronger. So strong that you can actually measure it with magnetics, with temperature, because it's that real. It does not represent entities from the other side or entities who are trapped. It is simply a recording. A recording in energy. And some can see it happen repeatedly over and over. This is the crystalline. Now let me tell you what's happening. As the earth shifts its energy, as Gaia also shifts her energy, as the Kundalini moves southward, it recalibrates all the grids. Suddenly, this grid that was crystalline, that remembers things equally, will be nonlinear. And that is to say, suddenly the things that were, as you would say, darker, will not be as remembered keenly as the things which are lighter. Now, my partner, you didn't do a very good job with that, so I'm going to ask you to back up and try again. The crystalline grid is being aligned for compassion. Where there is compassion, there will be energy that everyone can feel. Where there is darkness and war and death, there will be less energy than ever before. You'll be able to walk over places that used to disturb you before, and the crystalline grid will be quiet. And you'll go to places where there were healings and it'll soar. Where there's appreciation for God and love, there will be portals. Even the smallest healing will be noticed grandly. The realignment of the grid is the alignment to the mother energy. We call it Mother Earth. It's about time it responded accordingly. So the remembrance factor of the physics of the crystalline is changing. And what that's going to do is that there's going to be less hatred remembrance to fuel the fires of those who sit in histories of hatred. It's not going to affect them as much. And the next generation in certain places on this earth are simply not going to feel it. And they're not going to cooperate anymore with hate and war. And the religious belief systems of this planet are going to soften. You're going to see, even in the West, a realignment of what you call Catholicism. Within 1 to 2 generations, this church will change. And the love of Christ will be paramount, as it should be. But the rules around the old energy will start to crumble. Church is not going away, dear ones. It doesn't have to go away, dear ones. Do not judge what you think is correct and not correct on this planet for any other human being but yourself. For some need the organization where they go and report in a linear fashion and feel the love of God, where they sing the songs and have the healings that you can have here. And they are comfortable with this, and they are joiners. And there's no thing wrong with that. So if you can visualize something for this grand church, visualize purity, appropriateness, and change. And they will have a chance to do that because the crystalline of remembrance is starting to move. When human beings live on the crystalline grid in certain places, it feeds them every day with what has taken place there. Can you see what that might do? If the grid starts to remember things more profound that are beautiful than ugly, that's a recalibration even of the grid. There is no symmetry on the crystalline grid. Humans don't work in symmetrical ways. So if you start drawing lines around these places, you're not going to find that they spell something. There's not going to be a mystery solved. No puzzle from one to the other. It's what humans did in certain places that create the patterning of the grid. And now we get to the magnetic. The magnetic grid, if you could say, what is it about? It is communications. Not all planets have a magnetic field. It requires planets that have not cooled yet completely to have a magnetic field. Not all magnetic fields have poles which are north and south. So it's not the same everywhere. Yours is carefully designed. We've told you some anomalies about the magnetic field that you should know. We have cited things about magnetics that you should know. First and foremost is that it is necessary for life. If you change the magnetics of the planet too much, life will change. If you decide to go to another planet on a very long voyage, you must take the magnetic field with you. You must simulate as much as possible what you have here and surround yourself with it so your biology thinks it's the same. There will be tests of this and you'll see. But that's not what it's for. You get into physics, dear ones, and there are not all those interested in physics, but let me tell you something. This planet is being communicated with constantly and not by necessarily others out there like you. We are talking about energies of the galaxy. We're talking about physics with an attitude. We're talking about things that are magnetic and beyond. Quantum things that literally speak to this planet as though the galaxy were alive, speaking to where you are and what you're doing. If you've noticed carefully, and perhaps you haven't even looked, but the scientists know there's something dealing with magnetics that's new and is happening in your solar system that was never there before. Even the solar system is beginning to become recalibrated. We told you that. The sun is involved greatly. It has something called the heliosphere, the magnetic field of the sun, energy which is blasted out constantly, has another name, the solar wind, which quantumly measures the planet's fulcrum energy. That is to say, the planets around the sun push and pull the sun's core through what you would say is gravity. The sun, being the mother of the solar system, is very in tune where all the planets are, for they constantly pull upon the sun. This is a quantum patterning of the sun that is then transmitted to the earth through the solar wind, intercepted by the magnetic field, and transferred to you. And you have a name for it. Astrology. It starts to explain birth signs. It also starts to explain that no matter how you work the astrology, even backwards, even the Vedic, it's the same thing. And it's going to give you the same answers, for it's the same patterns, just a little upside down. The magnetic grid is a communicator. Oh, but there's more. So the solar system talks to you. You are literally patterned by it through the sun in your DNA. There are times on the planet that affect human consciousness. Full moons, void moons, retrogrades. Measurable they are in society by how much crime there is. How do you explain that? It's about consciousness. It comes and goes like the tide. Basically, through what the solar system does, all through the magnetic grid. The magnetic grid of the planet is like an antenna that is universal. But there's more. You need magnetics for entanglement. Now, if you were not part of the lecture earlier today, you may not know what that is. It's a quantum connection that is beyond the 3 dimensions. And you need magnetics to create it. And so the magnetic fields becomes part of an entanglement engine from a very far away place. I'll give you two new things in physics. One, I have spoken of before, so it doesn't get included in the two new ones. I'll start with this one. There's two missing laws of physics you will discover. There are four now, there should be six. The two laws of physics which are missing is a strong and weak multidimensional state or force. They work much like that in current physics, only quantumly. And it starts to explain things that you have not been able to understand or figure out in 3D. Two new things. Number one. In astronomy, those who look at the galaxies, including this one, don't understand why the stars move around the middle the way they do. Like they're pasted on a plate. Like a bicycle wheel whose spokes never move except together. Because they're hardwired to the rim. That's the way the galaxy moves. Around the middle. That's not Newtonian, if you noticed. It doesn't have anything to do with mass, if you've noticed. And it is not three-dimensional physics, if you've noticed. And every spiral galaxy does it. If you look at Andromeda, it does it. If you look at the Milky Way, it does it. And I'll tell you why. Because you are entangled with the middle. That is to say, the middle of the galaxy contains something you have called the potential of a singularity. It is not a black hole per se. It is a quantum event. It is a push-pull energy. You call it a black hole, we call it the twins. There's a push-pull quantum energy there, a strong and weak force. Physicists, listen to this channel. Perhaps this will lead to discovery of ideas. This galaxy is entangled. That is to say, whatever is happening in the middle is so strong with you, it rotates and you rotate with it. And what could it be in the middle? There's a portal there. And that's as far as we're going to go. A portal there. A grand one. It is not where you meet God. It's something grander than that. Perhaps even there is a communication with something else. That was number one. Number two, is it interesting that astronomers have to work the puzzle backwards to tell you that in order for the Big Bang to have happened, there has to be missing energy. And instead of saying there's missing energy, they say there has to be matter involved. And that matter, of course, is invisible and it's dark. And so in other words, for things to happen the way they've happened, if you work the puzzle backwards, you'll discover the only simulation that makes any sense is when you add in a whole bunch of things you don't understand. And you call it dark matter. Well, it isn't matter at all, dear ones, it's quantum energy. Quantum energy is not definable with three-dimensional attributes. And so we will just say it's quantum energy that pushes and pulls on the three-dimensional part. There's no such thing as dark matter. This is the missing puzzle. Physicists and astronomers, when you start understanding the push and the pull that created the universe, that is part of this galaxy, you will see the strong and the weak multidimensional force that explains it all. It'll fall into the puzzle and the formulas will work. And then you will see the truth of it. Almost everything you're looking at is quantum. Not the small, but the very large. And then I beg you, biologists, to start looking inside. For as it is in the small and the large, it is in the human being. and you will start to see the miracle of quantum DNA. These are the three grids. The magnetic grid of your planet communicates with you constantly. And now, just before I go, I'll talk about your parents. No, not the ones you think. There's Pleiadians in the room. And they're invisible. There's more and more of them all the time, and they're coming out of the portals that are being released in 2012. Pleiadians don't have to have spaceships to get here. They're entangled with you, and always have been, because they're part of the universe. I'm giving you some information we have never described before. If you're in an entangled state, dear one, and you understand multidimensional, and you understand multidimensional physics, you're going to start understanding that teleportation is not something that is science fiction. Anything in an entangled state is part of itself. It can be in two places at the same time. There's Pleiadians in the room. You think they're here. How do you define here? Is God here? And if God is here, does that mean he's missing somewhere else? No. Is God in your house right now? Watching over your loved ones, if they're there? And the answer is yes. Is God here in this room with you right now? And the answer is yes. How can God be in two places at the same time? There's Pleiadians here. Thousands of years ago, they knew how to do this. It's not simply high science. It's part of spiritual awareness. The more spiritual aware this earth becomes, the higher scientifics it'll be given, and the more that it'll understand about peace. Those are your parents. The Pleiadians watch over this place. There's a mountain in California, they're pouring out of it. You call it Shasta. There's a time capsule there, which is not really a time capsule at all. It's simply a portal for the Pleiadians. You stand on that mountain, you can hear him, you can see him. The lights flash. They come and they go. Now I want to tell you something. All in appropriateness and love, they are seeing what you're doing. They realize you made it. There's going to be a lot of activity on this planet. They're part of the magnetic grid. Communications, that's how they do it. If your Earth did not have the grid that Gaia put here, through the molten center of the Earth that still moves and creates the engine of magnetics, they would never be able to have come. If you did not have the crystalline, there would be no remembrance. You would have no help. And this is what is starting to occur. For the light worker is starting to get help. And that's coming from the crystalline. Together they represent something that we have taught now for 20 years. The earth is changing. Consciousness is shifting. And the old souls are awakening. Blessed is the human being who starts to put this together and understand that they are here not by accident, but for a reason. Lighthouses each go from this place differently than you came, holding energies that you didn't have before you came, and live longer because of it. I am Kryon, in love with humanity. In love with humanity. And so it is.
So why don't you come into a quiet place? And start by just letting your body get relaxed in the chair. Taking a couple of gentle breaths in and out. And not letting the mind say what's next, just being in the heart of now. And letting your being, your heart, be receptive, be open, be present to the one, all that is perfection, the love in the room, the love of the divine that surrounds us, that lives in us, that lives through us as one, beautiful, divine, where there is only that presence and no separation. The loving presence of the one heart, the one love, the one wisdom, the one light. And in that light that we share, in that love that we share, is the honoring and loving message from Kryon.
Greetings, dear ones. I am Kryon of Magnetic Service. Before we begin, we ask you again to change the reality of your thinking slightly from normal. What is happening? Who is speaking? Where is it coming from? I asked my partner to completely step aside and to let flow tonight what should flow. Can you think out of the box of what you know? The most difficult thing for humanity in general is to go to a place they've never been. Survival depends upon you going places you know about. If you've never been someplace, you'd be hesitant to go there. It just makes sense. You won't open a door when it says unknown. You'll open the door that says known, because you're comfortable with that. And the entire reason I bring this up is for what is next. I wish to enhance what you know about humanity. In order to do that, I will speak of controversial things. Those listening to this message after the fact may have been asked by others to listen. They will have a complete different perception that you will in this room. But this room contains an energy that cannot be duplicated on a recording. Those of like mind set up a confluence of consistency and belief. You might say that your belief here enhances the truth that you carry. I want to talk about humanity. I want to enhance humanity. I would like to tell you some of the things that took place, in perhaps ways I have not before, to broach some subjects that maybe you're interested in. I do these things because all of the teaching tonight is to enhance the human experience, to show you you're bigger than you think. You may have been here longer than you know. And it's beautiful. When you think of human history, how far does it go back? If you look it up, how far does it go? Now, the common consensus of historians in general, and that which would be given to you by planetary scientists and authorities, has you only here for approximately 11,000 years. Now, I'm talking about societies. I'm not talking about a human in a biological sense, because there's been the evolution of humanity, and that's for anthropologists. I'm talking about sociology. How long have cities been here, systems been here, religion been here? How long does your science say that there's evidence of these things? Now, this may seem like a rehash of something we've discussed before, but it's more than that. In Istanbul, Turkey, we sat in front of a large group and gave a channel called Unknown History. This is similar, but different. But the premise is the same. You've been around a lot longer than 10 or 11,000 years. Now, go slowly, my partner, so this is succinct and makes sense. Everything you have that you can study, dear ones, about humanity and civilization stops about 10,000 to 11,000 years ago. It appears as though that is when it all got started. When the cities sprang up. When you go back far enough, one of the first ones you will see that had a succinct consciousness of organization was that which took place in the Indus Valley, which you call Sumeria. Almost 11,000 years. It looked like the first one. And everything past that follows the rules of linearity, synchronicity of discovery. One thing led to another, and you come up with the pyramids and so on and so forth. And this is your history. Now, metaphysically, we have channeled to you over and over that humanity is almost 50,000 years old, as you know it, that has had organization, civilization, cities, consciousness, evolution. You only see 10 of it. Where is the truth here? Why is it you cannot see what I say was there before then? Was there some kind of an event that might have erased what was formerly there to such a degree it doesn't show up to the archaeologist, to the historians, in the way that it does 10,000 years ago? And the answer is yes. There are all manner of things that I could lead you through right now. But what I want to do is plant seeds of information and truth that will enhance history, not challenge it. I am not here to rewrite things out of a belief that you have. I am here to add on to what you've been told. And what I say now and tonight may seem fanciful. After all, it's channeling. And those listening to this in the future, the far future, will smile, because what I'm going to tell you now will finally be discovered at some time. It's only a matter of generations before you have certain kinds of instruments and examination that will show you the kinds of things that I'm going to explain to you now. Some things will never be seen. They can't be. Without a time machine, there's no way. You can go back far enough to see what I'm going to talk about. Let me interrupt this channel for something that seemingly is non sequitorious. In other words, it's out of the logic of the channel story, but it isn't. There is an overwhelming feeling among old souls on this planet that you have existed before in lifetimes that had advanced technology. Overwhelming. We've talked about it before. Those who believe they've had the sinking island syndrome. Atlantis. Which one and when? Doesn't matter. You all were part of an advanced civilization. This is the feeling you had. I'm not confirming or denying it. I am talking about the truth of your Akash. Overwhelmingly, there is an entire section of humanity that is convinced, because of the feelings they have through past life, revolution, or dreams, or whatever, that they've been part of an advanced civilization way before 10,000 years ago. Would you like me to acknowledge it? All right. It's correct. Absolutely. 100% correct. You don't have a time machine, or do you? You have an Akash. And in the Akash is what we want to talk about. The Akashic record of humanity is that which would expose past life energies to you. And some of the most energetic ones will come to the surface, not in a linear way, not in a year per year per year, but instead in an energetic way. That is to say, the energy shows itself. What was most dramatic? What took place that sticks with you? And that's what you remember, and that's what comes forward. And here you sit. And so many of you said, yes, I was there. I know it. I can feel it. I've had dreams about it. I've had readings about it. We were part of this. There was advancement. We had many things that you don't have now. You're right. And now I'm going to tell you why. And it's not what you think. It's hardly what you think. It's outside of the purview of logic or things that would make sense to you. So stand by. Something wonderful. The human brain is complex, but one of the simplest things it does is to analyze based upon only what it knows. It cannot analyze things it doesn't know about. Therefore, if you believe you are part of something called an advanced civilization, let's define what your brain will tell you you did. Well, if you had an advanced technological civilization, you would have simply better things than you have now. The computers would be more powerful. You'd have flying cars. You'll have laser energy. People getting healed on tables instantly. Long lifespans. Right? You're nothing of the kind. Nothing of the kind. Isn't it funny about science fiction movies? There's nothing really new given to you. Only what you have that has been better developed. You only know what you know. So a science fiction movie about the future will simply have what you have now that works better. Better computers and flying cars. The idea of something completely and totally out of the box that you've never experienced yet, you think, will not be in a movie. Even the far thinkers that take you to outer space and look at other civilizations simply give you faster spaceships. Just more of what you know about, not what you don't know about. So I'm going to tell you what you don't know about. In order to make sense of this, we have to get a little cryptic. When Kryon, this that you've sensed, this energy, came to the planet originally, all those years ago, we gave you messages that said the magnetic grid of your planet is responsible for the activity of the enlightened consciousness. That is to say, that your DNA and the development of humanity is all tied in to the magnetic grid. I called myself the magnetic master, and now you know why. It's about the magnetic grid. Could it be that the magnetic grid of the planet is starting to change? We have given you channel after channel about that. We started by telling you it altered. It had to move dramatically in 10 years, more than it had moved in 100. Go find it in that which is the history of the measurement of the magnetic grid after 1987. The harmonic convergence. The grid had to move to prepare itself for something that's coming. What has the recent channels talked about that's coming? Let me review. You're moving into another part of space right now. This galaxy rotates around the middle. All of the stars moving at the same speed rotate relative to each other, rotate around the middle. Your solar system is moving into a new place of space that it has never been in with human life existing. Oh, it's been there, but not with life. So it's the first time human consciousness has ever been where it's going. Ask an astronomer what's going on. And they will tell you that humanity, for the last 10,000 years, which is all they computed, has always been in a certain kind of bubble of radiation. That the heliosphere of the sun has cooperated with that. And suddenly, it's changing. What have you seen about the sun lately? It's changing. What have you seen about the weather lately? It's changing. It's all related to where your solar system is headed. I told you this. There have been 3 channels where I've mentioned it. We've asked you to look at the science about it to see if I'm right or not. Are you moving into a new kind of space or not? Go find it. And when you find it, maybe you'll believe it, because you're headed into a kind of space that has an interesting radiation to it that many think is dangerous. And what I'm going to tell you next is it's going to alter the magnetic field of this planet in a multidimensional way to enhance human development and evolution. You're going to get smarter. Because the magnetic grid is ready for this. It always was. Past the precession of the equinoxes, dear ones, you were ready to evolve, and you had to have the physics for it. And that is what we're talking about. Now, why would I bring this up when I talk about an evolved race of the past? And now I will tell you. About 11,000 years ago, at the end of the last glacier age, a mini ice age, if you wish, there were things happening on this planet. I want you to go find them right now. They have to do with what I will call unusual plasmic activity in the atmosphere. The magnetic grid was much, much different. Mass ejections from the sun, the kinds of things that the movies are made of that would come and hit this planet's magnetic field, would charge it with different kinds of plasma. It's there for you to see. It's in the ice cores. It's in the magnetics that you would measure in the layers of the earth. It's been recorded. It was different then. And I want to tell you what it caused. First of all, it caused, at some point in time, because it got too strong, there was a lot of death. We have told you this before. You have had a situation where humanity has gone through at least 4 stages of civilization of different ages. And this is number 4, moving to number 5. We've told you about looking at number 3. In unknown history, you won't find anything. And one of the reasons, it's been obliterated. And it wasn't through weapons, it was through plasmic discharge. This planet had an atmosphere that was alive in a different way through sun's activity. And it charged the magnetic grid in a way that humanity developed DNA to at least 50%. You're at 30 now, 35 perhaps. What I want to tell you is if you've had lifetimes where you felt you were an advanced civilization, you were, because your consciousness was advanced, not your technology. You could do things you can't do now, and you could do them easily. You could heal your own body with your own consciousness. There were those who knew how to create things out of nothing. You could have seeming inventions that weren't inventions at all. They were you with you. A high consciousness of humanity which changes physics itself. Yes, you were there. Not with flying cars and lasers, but with a wisdom that you remember. And there's a reason for all of this. So that in your Akash, listen to me, you're not covering new ground as you evolve. Listen to me. You are instead bringing forward what you had. There has been already a pattern. An Akashic pattern exists within you to fast track the evolution that you're going through. You've been there before. How do you like it so far? Old soul, what you remember in an advanced civilization way beyond 10,000 years ago is starting to pattern itself now. It's not new, it's not unknown, and your Akash knows it, and your innate knows it. And as those human beings come into this planet that are new and are newborns, they're picking it up from their Akash. What has been will be. It's not new. You're coming back on it. We've talked about Atlantis. We've talked about the fact that not all of you, not millions of you, could have been on one sinking island. And yet you all believe you were. There is a metaphor there for the destruction of humanity for many reasons, and it was real, and you all went through it. Most of you were destroyed. And that was civilization number 3. Number 2 had its own reasons, mostly earth-based. The start over of number 4, that's what you are currently looking at as human history, only 10,000 years ago. Dear ones, you've been here for 50. Science will someday agree and see it for what it is. You're not that young. You're old. You've been here a long time. And your Akashic record is filled with these kinds of things. Do you see what I am saying today? You've got the building blocks of the future because you experienced it in the past, old soul. You're not going to be afraid of it. And when you start to experience it, it's going to be something that is comfortable to you. I want to ask you, look in the eyes of the indigo children that are going through some things. They are confident. They're not looking around scared that they're different. They're looking at you, wondering why you're not scared. They've been through this before. They're old souls. They're remembering that what is coming about in their consciousness and in their lives, they've been through before. Confidence in everything. You can see it. Let's talk about this Akashic record in a different way. You're having dreams, perhaps. I would like to tell you something. It's not fair. Your Akashic record is very, very biased. It is not going to read you your past lives in a linear way like you look at a book. Turn a page, who were you, what you did. Turn a page, who were you next and who you did. Turn a page, then what did you become? It's not interested. Because it deals with energy. Only energy. And there is a reason in this new energy for the kinds of reflections you are having, the dreams you are having. I'm speaking to at least 8 people in the audience. You want to know why you're thinking the way you're thinking, what's coming up at this time, why now are these things being presented, what's up with your dreams, why are you feeling the way you're feeling. Your Akashic record is overtime, and it's giving you things to process. And the reason? Because you need to clear them. You're not going to go forward until you clear this stuff. That's the beauty of your innate. In your DNA, that which is most profoundly affecting your life based upon the past is going to come up and face you and ask for dismissal. Get rid of it. You're having some interesting dreams. Let's say you've drowned in the past life. Let's say that it might have been 1,000 lifetimes ago, but this is what you remember, and you have dreams of drowning. You can't breathe. You're gagging. You sit up overnight. There it is again, that dream. And what does a human do with that? It's so interesting. The first thing they go is for, what does it mean? What should I do about it? Now, that's accurate. What does it mean? What should I do about it? But they never analyze what it really means. They think it's prophecy. I'm going to drown. So I better not go by the water. It's a prophecy about the future. I'm having the dream over and over. Therefore, it must be something that is going to happen. So let's get afraid of it. It's not here to create fear. I'll tell you what it's about. That dream is about something happened to you that's affecting you even today. It's about your throat. It's about breathing. It's about many things. And it's got to be dismissed. If you will recognize it for what it is, being brought to you on a platter, old soul, and asking you to meditate upon it and say, thank you, Innate, thank you, Akash, for letting me see the sense of this. I'm not afraid of drowning. I'm not afraid of anything that's there anymore. It's not going to affect my life. I'm not afraid of the future. I will be happy to wade into the ocean or a lake without fear. That's what it's about. As long as there's something that is etched in your Akash that creates fear with you in dreams or past life experience kind of recognitions, it's going to hold you back. So what is starting to happen to old souls is that the lifetimes that are the most energetic, that contain the most dramatic things that are affecting your life, will be presented to you on a platter. How do you like it so far? And when it takes place, I implore you, do not be afraid of it. Do not manifest in fear around it, and don't think it's prophecy. It's not. It's you working with you. Dreams are this way. Old souls often have Akashic dreams. New souls, they're just getting used to the planet. They dream about other things. Old souls in this energy are starting to dream dreams that mean things. You have a dream about family. Only nobody's playing the role they should play, and nobody's in the right place. They couldn't be, because it doesn't make any sense. It's nonsensical. So you have a sister or a brother or a mother or a father. They've been in places they've never been, meeting people they never knew, acting oddly. Now, someone in here I'm talking to. What does something like that mean? And you wake up completely and totally disarrayed and confused. Wow, I'm going to be betrayed by my family. It's not a prophecy. And I laugh because this is so human. In order to take something you don't understand and then project it into fear. I want you to project it instead to this. What is the metaphor? What does it mean? Start looking and analyzing what took place. Nothing is literal. Nothing. Your Akash doesn't know literal. It knows multidimensional impressions and potentials. That's all it knows. And it gives it to you in linear dreams. You've got an unusual family in your dream doing unusual things. It's not your brother, your mother, your father, or your children. That is a metaphor for family. And it's a spiritual metaphor that's shifting. There is shifting taking place, and it's asking you to be circumspect with who you deal with. That's what it's about. All it takes is a little bit of analysis from that which is innate and intuition. There's all manner of these kinds of dreams you're being given today that are asking you to analyze, to realize, and dismiss. You're decoding your life. Old soul, you've had lifetime after lifetime in such old energies. You've warred and warred and then warred again. You've hated each other, you've killed each other. And you carry these things around in dreams. And some of them are so profound, and you've done it so often, that they affect your life. Mother, you got to stop dreaming about your kids dying. I'm talking to somebody else here. Just because they did before doesn't mean they're going to do it this time. You've all had children who died in your arms at birth, with your placenta blood on them. They never made it. They never made it. And this is a recurring fear, not of birth, but of death. It may come up in certain ways in your dreams of fear for only one reason, to present it to you saying, get rid of it. It's old energy. You're past that now. It's old energy. You're past that now. You're really past that now. But the old soul will continue to have the old things presented to them so they can get through them, dismiss them, discard them, and move forward. It's a lot of work, and that's why we call you a light worker. You've been there and you've done that. You've survived these civilizations. Some of them advanced, where you had an advanced consciousness of wisdom that you're recapturing. You can't go to an advanced place with a dark remembrance on your consciousness. What's happened in these last 10,000 years, dear ones, is still there in your Akashic record, and some of it has to be dealt with. What a great message, isn't it? God cares enough about you to bring you bad dreams. How about that? And when you have them, I want you to awaken, and instantly, I want you to celebrate it. You got a bad taste in your mouth and your brain. If you're not careful, a bad dream will ruin your day. Because you carry that sense with you from then on. And instead, I want you to celebrate it. Do you have the courage to celebrate a bad dream? Then I want you right then on the bed to analyze. Thank you, Akash. Thank you, Spirit. Help me to figure it out. Whatever it is, I dismiss it. The ugly feeling that you have because of the dream is still with you for an instant. I dismiss it. It's gone. and it'll stay gone. It needs to be gone, or I can't move into magnificence. Get rid of the old before you go to the new. There are going to be many channels about these kinds of things because they're new. They're germane, that is to say, those listening relate to them. Because many of you have experienced these kinds of things. You've done nothing wrong. They're not bad prophecy. They're your own innate, bringing things to you so you can see them and dismiss them. That's the power of the old soul, the consciousness of an evolved spirit over thousands of years. That's what you have. Moving into an age where you can remember what it was like to have a wisdom that will never create another war. Good news, dear ones. Personal it is. Beautiful it is. Current it is. There's never been a time like this. It's not the same old, same old. Things are starting to shift, and there are those who are feeling it. What's going on? Why am I feeling this way? Why don't I know? What should I be worried about? Oh, how linear. Celebrate the change. Whatever it is that's going on, you celebrate it. Because there's a benevolence of love in your life that will give you good things that you create with your mind. Cast away the fear of the future and start celebrating what's to come. That's the message, not just of Kryon. It's the message of the New Age. I love humanity for this, for what's to come. And so it is.